Today, Bitcoin slips back to the $61,000 level. The U.S. orders a Chinese-backed crypto miner to sell land near a nuclear missile base. And Muneeb Ali of Trust Machines weighs in on Bitcoin's price moves and how the spot crypto ETFs in Hong Kong has changed the industry. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Talia Kaplan. Crypto prices in the red this morning, with Bitcoin falling back below $62,000 as of noon Eastern. Ether dipped more than 2% to just under $2,900, and Polygon's Matic token dropped 1.5% to 66 cents. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. The Biden administration has ordered a Chinese-backed crypto mining company to sell land near a nuclear missile base in Wyoming. President Biden issued the order yesterday following an investigation by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, a government agency chaired by the U.S. Treasury Department that investigates corporate deals for national security concerns. The White House said the British Virgin Islands firm that is majority owned by Chinese nationals acquired the real estate in 2022, placing its operations within 1 mile of the Francis E. Warren Air Force Base. The presidential order went on to say that the company's site contained specialized and foreign-sourced equipment potentially capable of facilitating surveillance and espionage activities. Biden said that there was credible evidence to believe the company called Mine One might take action that threatens to impair the national security of the United States. The firm was ordered to divest from the land in the next 120 days and to remove certain improvements and equipment at the property. The company did not yet respond to CNBC's request for comment. Next, 2 U.S. senators are questioning the Justice Department's pursuit of crypto mixers. In this letter sent to Attorney General Merrick Garland, Senators Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, and Cynthia Lummis, a Republican from Wyoming, questioned the interpretation of law the department is using to pursue crypto software services as unlicensed money transmitting businesses. The senators argued that the interpretation contradicts the guidance from the Department of the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and, quote, threatens to criminalize Americans offering non-custodial crypto asset software services. They also claimed non-custodial crypto service providers cannot be classified as money transmitter businesses because users retain sole possession and control of their crypto assets. The senators urged Garland to, quote, discard the flawed interpretation, arguing that subjecting developers to potential criminal liability will stifle innovation. The letter comes a couple of weeks after the DOJ alleged that Samurai Wallet is an unlicensed money transmitting business. Last summer, the department also alleged that crypto mixer Tornado Cash is an unlicensed money transmitting business. Sticking with Tornado Cash, a Dutch court sentenced developer Alexei Pertsov to more than 5 years in jail for money laundering. According to CoinDesk, the indictment claimed Pertsov made a habit of committing money laundering between July 2019 and August 2022, and that he should have at least suspected the criminal origins of illicit transactions on the Tornado Cash platform. The developer was first jailed in the Netherlands in August 2022 after Tornado Cash was blacklisted by the U.S. government. At the time, the U.S. Treasury alleged that Tornado Cash was a key tool for the sanctioned North Korean state-backed hacking group Lazarus, which had been tied to major crypto thefts. CoinDesk reports that Pertsev can appeal his sentence. 2 other developers of the crypto mixer also face allegations of money laundering and sanctions violations in the U.S. One of those developers is still on the run. The other will head to trial this September. All right, back to markets for our main story. I spoke with Muneeb Ali, the CEO of Trust Machines, for insight on what's driving Bitcoin's price right now. He also co-founded Stacks, an open-source blockchain network that brings smart contracts to Bitcoin and weighs in on venture capital appetite for Layer 2 Bitcoin projects. Let's talk about Bitcoin's price first, because we're stuck in this range around $60,000 to $63,000. And it kind of seems like Bitcoin's boring again after all the excitement around ETFs and the halving earlier this year. Experts have been telling CNBC that now that those big events are done, not to expect Bitcoin to test new highs for the next few months. What's your take on where Bitcoin's price stands right now? And are you in the same camp who believe it could be months before we get back to new all-time highs?
Yeah, so I think to me, it's like it feels like I'm watching a movie, the same movie on repeat. Like I've seen this 3 times before. Like every halving, the months after the halving, it actually becomes exactly like this. It's boring. There was a lot of interest, right before the halving. Everyone's waiting for things to just like change very rapidly. And then there's this slight disappointment. Things kind of like became stale for a bit, and typically, in my experience, it's 2 to 3 months before things start picking up again. I don't think history exactly repeats itself, but right now it just seems like the same story I've seen before.
And it certainly will be very interesting to see if that forecast comes to fruition. But I mentioned ETFs here in the US. However, a couple of weeks ago, Hong Kong became the first in Asia to offer retail investors the ability to trade Bitcoin and Ether at spot prices with the launch of 6 spot Bitcoin and Ether exchange traded funds. How does the rollout of these products change crypto sentiment in your view? They have much smaller trading volume than US ETFs, but do they still have a meaningful impact on the industry?
I think their impact is extremely meaningful because people might not remember 2 years ago, Hong Kong actually started like shutting down on Bitcoin and crypto. Like everything was just like tightening up, and this is like a reversal of that, right? So my sort of like theory is that this is the mainland China almost like using Hong Kong as a smaller experiment to see how to interact with this technology, how to regulate it, and so on. So I think this actually potentially extremely significant. If you look at the trading volumes, we have to remember that it's a much smaller market as well. But I think it's a very significant market. And for me, the bigger thing remains that Hong Kong is more like a test bed and an experiment that mainland China is actually running to interact with Bitcoin.
Interesting. And expanding on that, I think those ETFs are just one sign of Hong Kong's renewed embrace of crypto, which slowed down during mainland China's crackdown on the industry a couple of years ago, as you noted. So, what's your reaction to the expansion of crypto in the region? And how do you feel about the growth of Bitcoin globally? Do you see signs of real adoption that people just aren't paying attention to?
So I was actually in Hong Kong last week. I was there for Bitcoin Asia, and also there were a couple of side events that we were organizing, mostly focused on Bitcoin L2s. And there was a remarkable difference. Actually, some of the OGs, like people who were around in like 2013, 2014, that I've known for a while, they came and commented to me that it feels like such a different world because they would organize some Bitcoin meetup or especially a developer focused event, and very few people would show up. And at our Bitcoin L2 event, literally, it was so jam packed that I had to step out of the venue for 5 minutes to get some fresh air and then come back. So it's a completely different world. The interest in building on Bitcoin, the interest in Bitcoin is actually like going through the roof right now.
So, I want to talk about another trend we've seen this year, which is spikes in transaction fees on Bitcoin's network, especially around the halving. As a co creator of Stacks and a developer of applications through Trust Machines, what's your take on the swings in transaction fees this year and how Bitcoin Layer 2s fit into that?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin's block space has sort of been underutilized over the past few years. I personally expected this to happen much sooner. Stacks, the project actually started because of these fee spikes in 2017. Like that's when, in late 2017, Lightning started, Stacks started, and that was a direct sort of like reaction to Bitcoin's scalability limitations and the spike in fees that we saw during 2017. And now I think for the past couple of years, it was sort of like very surprising to me how fees stayed low because that's not a natural environment for Bitcoin in my view. If Bitcoin starts getting any meaningful usage, meaning like even if a handful of millions users or especially tens of millions of users start using the network at the same time, fees are going to spike, right? Like Bitcoin is not designed to scale to let's say a billion users or even hundreds of millions of users at the base layer, and that just reinforces the need for L2s, and we're seeing tons of innovation there. Obviously, Stacks is sort of like one of the major players leading the Bitcoin L2 innovation. And then there are so many other new projects as well that are coming up. And I think they are going to be extremely important because Bitcoin fees on a long enough timeline would just keep going up. And I think it'll be harder and harder to use Bitcoin at the L1 level.
Sticking with developer trends, but also moving to VC interest, where do you think the industry stands on development and growth for Bitcoin? There was a real decline in VC dollars after the last cycle, and according to PitchBook, we're starting to now see an uptick again. So, does it feel like things are rebounding to you?
I think in conversations that I've had with other peers, things are definitely rebounding. People are raising capital, especially in the Bitcoin space, especially the Bitcoin L2 space. I think seed and Series A stage rounds are actually getting oversubscribed, and then even for the larger projects, they're doing up rounds at significantly higher valuations that I've just seen in my peer group. So I do think like things are coming back. Specifically on the Bitcoin L2 market, I think if you just compare to even Ethereum, it's a 70, $80 billion market for Ethereum L2s. And Bitcoin L2s are sitting at like 4 or 5 billion, depending on how you count. And Stacks is like, 80, 90% of it. And I think this market should be much, much larger. And VC sort of like see that, and they want to come in and take those early bets on smaller projects and try to see the growth of Bitcoin L2 landscape.
Okay, before we go, I want to mention that CNBC's 2024 Disruptor 50 list is out today with a whole host of AI companies taking top spots. You can check out the list over at cnbc.com/D50. And you can go over to cnbc.com/Crypto World if you want to learn more about how some AI firms are using blockchain to bolster the performance of this growing technology. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.